I was on my way to the meeting for my husband's will. When I got into the car, a homeless man ran up and yelled, "Ma'am, don't start that car, your daughter-in-law." My blood ran cold. But when I got to the meeting, that leech practically fainted when she saw me. I was about to start the engine when I heard it. A gut-wrenching scream that cut through the morning like a knife. "Ma'am, don't start that car." My hands froze on the steering wheel. My heart pounded in my chest so hard, I thought it was going to burst out. I turned my head and saw him, a dirty, disheveled man with torn clothes and greasy hair stuck to his forehead. He was running toward me with his arms out as if trying to prevent a tragedy. "Your daughter-in-law was here last night." I felt the air rush out of my lungs. Adriana, my daughter-in-law, had been near my car in the dead of night. The man slammed the window with his open palms, leaving streaks of dirt on the glass. His eyes, sunken and bloodshot, looked at me with an urgency I couldn't ignore. It wasn't the look of a lunatic. It was the look of someone who had seen something terrible. "Don't start it, please." I saw what she did. I rolled down the window just a few inches, my breath catching in my throat. What did you see?" I whispered. He took a step back, trembling. She and a man in a suit opened the hood. They were carrying a small bag. I was there on the corner. Nobody sees me, but I see everything. My fingers let go of the keys. They fell into my lap with a metallic clatter that sounded too loud in the silence that followed. Everything began to make horrible sense. Julian, my husband, had died just 3 weeks ago. A massive heart attack, the doctors said. But I knew something was wrong. Julian was strong. He took care of his health. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. And suddenly he was gone at the hospital with only Adriana by his side. Only her. And now this man, this stranger who lived in the city's shadows, was telling me that my daughter-in-law had touched my car in the middle of the night. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice still shaky. He looked down. "Because your husband was good to me once. He gave me food when everyone else spit on me. And last night I dreamed about him. He told me to watch out for you." My eyes filled with tears. Julian, always so noble, always so generous. And now, even from wherever he was trying to protect me. I got out of the car, my legs trembling. The morning sun hit my face, but I felt cold, a cold that came from within. I walked to the front of the car, awkwardly opened the hood, and what I saw took my breath away. A cable was cut, not broken, cut with precision, and next to the engine, hidden among the metal parts, was a small plastic bag with a clear liquid that smelled like gasoline. My entire body began to tremble. If I had started that engine, if I had pressed the gas, everything would have exploded. I would have exploded. I leaned against the car, my knees weak and my vision blurred. Adriana wanted to kill me. My own daughter-in-law, the woman who hugged my son every night, the one who smiled at me at every family dinner, the one who called me Mama la Nena with that sweet fake voice, had tried to murder me. And the worst part of it all, I had to go to the law office that very morning for the reading of Julian's will. She would be there smiling, waiting, believing I would never arrive. If this story grabbed you from the first word, subscribe to this channel to keep discovering life stories that will make you feel, reflect, and never forget. I slammed the hood shut, wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and looked at the man who had just saved my life. "What is your name?" I asked. "Everyone calls me Skinny, Mom." "Thank you, Skinny. Thank you for listening to Julian." I took all the cash I had in my purse. It wasn't much, but it was something. I put it in his hands. "I'll be back soon, and when I return, I want you to tell me everything you saw. Every single detail." He nodded, clutching the dollars to his chest as if they were gold. I called a taxi. I wasn't going to risk my life in that car, not yet. But as the taxi drove through the city streets, a cold, hard certainty settled in my chest. Adriana had made a mistake. She had underestimated me. She thought I was just an old, weak widow, easy to eliminate. But she was wrong because now I knew, and a woman who knows is dangerous. The law office was waiting for me. My daughter-in-law was waiting for me. And I was going to walk through that door as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was already at war. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. The law office smelled of old paper and reheated coffee. The walls were beige. The paintings had gilded frames, the mahogany desk. Everything seemed designed to give solemnity to the moment. But I didn't feel solemnity. I felt nauseous. Adriana was already there when I arrived, sitting next to my son, Michael, with her legs crossed and that perfect smile she always used as a mask. She wore a tight black dress, discreet but elegant. Her hair was pulled back in a low bun, pearl earrings, impeccable makeup, the perfect widow, or that's what she wanted to look like. When she saw me enter, her eyes widened for just a second more than normal. It was an almost imperceptible gesture, but I saw it. I saw the surprise. I saw the fear. She didn't expect me to arrive alive. Mom. Michael immediately stood up and hugged me. His body was tense, heavy. My son had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. He had deep, dark circles, an unshaven beard, and when he squeezed me against his chest, I felt him trembling. My love, I whispered, stroking his back. I'm here. Adriana also stood up. She walked toward me with measured, almost theatrical steps, and hugged me with that false warmth that already made my stomach churn. Mama Elelanina, she said in a soft voice. It's good you arrived. We were worried. Her hands on my back were cold, her perfume too sweet. And when she pulled away, our eyes met for an instant that was too long. I didn't look away. She did. Well, let's begin. Mr. Romero, the attorney, a man about 60 years old with thick glasses and a blue tie, opened a leather folder on the desk. I know this is a difficult time for the Miller family, but it is necessary to fulfill Mr. Julian's last wishes. Beside him, the young lawyer, George Solis, quietly took notes from the corner. I sat down opposite the desk, Michael to my right, Adriana to my left, so close I could hear her breathing. The attorney began to read. At first, everything seemed normal. The main house was left to me. The personal bank accounts, too. Some land in Arizona would be divided between Michael and his sister Sophia, who lived in Houston and couldn't make it. But then came the part that made me feel like the floor was opening up beneath my feet. And in accordance with the testamentary disposition modified on the 12th of August of last year. The lawyer paused and looked at me over his glasses. Yes, he said. The properties located in the downtown Los Angeles area, the warehouse in Anaheim, and the apartment in Beverly Hills are left to Mrs. Adriana Carter Miller. Silence. A silence so heavy I could feel it crushing my chest. What? My voice came out barely as a whisper. The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. It was a modification made by Mr. Julian 3 months before his passing, signed before a notary. Here is the documentation. He pushed some papers toward me. My hands trembled so much I could barely hold them. There it was. Julian's signature, his name, the date. But something wasn't right. Julian would never have hidden something like this from me. He would never have left multi-million-dollar properties to Adriana without even mentioning it to me. We were a team, always had been, Mom, Dad told me. Michael's voice sounded tired, almost defeated. He said that Adriana had been a great support for him in recent months, that he wanted to secure our future. I turned to my son with a torn heart. And you knew. You knew and didn't tell me anything. Michael looked down. I didn't want to worry you. I thought Dad would tell you when the time was right. Adriana placed her hand on Michael's. A possessive gesture marking territory. Elelanena. I know this is a surprise, she said in that controlled, almost compassionate voice. But Julian trusted me. He knew I would take care of Michael and of you, too. Of course. Her words were poison wrapped in velvet. I got up from the chair. My legs were as heavy as if I were carrying stones. I need air. I left the room before anyone could stop me. The hallway of the law office was narrow and cold. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to think. 3 properties, millions of dollars in Adriana's name, and she had tried to kill me that very morning. Why? What else did she want? What else did she need to take from me? The answer came clear, brutal. She wanted everything. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Adriana. She walked out of the room with that unbreakable smile, as if nothing in the world could touch her. Elelanena, I understand you're surprised, but this is what Julian wanted. We should respect his will, don't you think? I stared at her. Every muscle in my body was tense. Were you near my car last night? Her smile wavered just for a second, but it was enough. What? No, why would I? Someone saw you. Her eyes hardened. The mask was beginning to crack. I don't know what you're talking about, Elelanena. Maybe the stress is getting to you. You should rest. She turned around and went back into the room, leaving me alone in that icy hallway. But something had changed in me. I was no longer afraid. I had clarity. Adriana had planned all of this. She manipulated Julian, falsified documents, tried to kill me. And now, in front of a lawyer, She was collecting her spoils. But she made a mistake. She left me alive, and I was going to use every second I had left to unmask her betrayal, recover what was mine, and make her pay for what she did to Julian. I returned to the room. I sat down. I signed what I had to sign. But inside, the war had already begun. And this time, I was going to fight until the end. The following days were a silent nightmare. I returned to my house, the house Julian and I built together 30 years ago, and everything felt different. The walls no longer protected me. The furniture, the paintings, the framed photos, everything seemed to whisper the same question to me. What really happened? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bag of gasoline hidden in the engine. I saw Adriana's smile. I heard her sweet, venomous voice. And then the rumors began. It was at the market where I first heard it. I had gone early to buy vegetables, trying to maintain some normalcy in my shattered life. Mrs. Lupita, who sells peppers and tomatoes at the corner stall, greeted me with that awkward smile that people put on when they don't know what to say. "Ella la nena, so good to see you. How are you getting by?" Lupita slowly nodded, but her gaze avoided mine. She nervously arranged the tomatoes in the tray. "Say, is it true that—" She stopped, swallowed. "No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't pry." Something in my chest tightened. "What is true, Lupita?" She lowered her voice, leaning in slightly. "They say that Mr. Julian didn't die of a heart attack, that something strange happened at the hospital." I froze. The bag of vegetables almost fell from my hands. "Who is saying that?" "Well, people say your daughter-in-law went to the hospital every day alone and that the doctors never really explained what happened." "A man so healthy, just like that?" She made a gesture with her hand, as if something vanished into thin air. I didn't answer her. I paid, took my things, and left there with my heart pounding in my ears. But it didn't end there. At the drugstore, the cashier looked at me with pity. At the bakery, 2 women stopped talking as soon as I entered. And on the corner of my street, I saw the neighbor from number 12, Carol, talking with another woman. When they saw me pass, they lowered their voices and turned away. But I managed to hear. "They say the daughter-in-law already got 3 properties. Poor Elelanena. And she treated her like a daughter." Every word was a stab. It wasn't just that Adriana had betrayed me. It was that the whole neighborhood knew it, or at least suspected it. And I had no proof, only intuitions, only a huge void where my trust used to be. That night, alone in the house, I sat in front of Julian's desk. It was an antique piece of dark wood furniture with deep drawers and a desk lamp that he used to review contracts. I opened the first drawer, papers, old invoices, electricity receipts. The second drawer, notebooks, pens, a photo of us in San Diego, smiling under the sun, my eyes filled with tears. "Julian, what did they do to you?" I whispered. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. In the third drawer, way in the back, there was a manila folder. It was hidden beneath some old architectural blueprints. I took it out with trembling hands. Inside were bank statements, but they weren't the ones I knew. It was an account I had never seen in Julian and Adriana's names. I felt the world stop. Bank movements, transfers, $200,000 withdrawn in August, another $100,000 in September. And then just a week before Julian died, another transfer of $300,000. A total of $600,000, $400,000 moved before his death and $200,000 after. Without my knowledge, I looked for the dates. I compared them with my calendar. All those transfers were made on days I was away visiting my sister in Dallas or on a spiritual retreat in Sedona. Adriana had waited for the perfect moment. And Julian? Did Julian know? Or had she deceived him too? My hands trembled so much that the papers wrinkled between my fingers. Then the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. "Mrs. Elelanena Hughes?" "Yes, who is this?" "I'm Dr. Vargas. I worked at St. Jude Hospital when your husband was admitted." My breath caught. "What do you need, doctor?" There was a long pause, too long. "I need to talk to you in person. There is something that should have been investigated at the time, but no one wanted to listen to me." My heart pounded so hard I felt the pulse in my temples. "What are you talking about?" "About your husband's last hours? About what we found in his blood? And about who was with him when everything happened?" I closed my eyes. Tears flowed freely, hot, furious. "Tell me where and when." "Tomorrow at 3 out in the afternoon at the cafe across from the hospital. Come alone." He hung up. I sat there at Julian's desk with the bank statements scattered in front of me and the phone still in my hand. The rumors were true. Something horrible had happened, and everyone knew it. But no one dared to say it out loud, except me, because I wasn't going to be silent anymore. Tomorrow I would know the truth, the whole truth. And if Adriana had killed my husband, if she had poisoned his last days of life to steal everything from me, then she would have to pay too, no matter how long it took, no matter how much it hurt me. Julian deserved justice, and I was going to give it to him. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering, trying to find the exact moment when everything began to fall apart. The moment when Adriana stopped being the affectionate daughter-in-law and turned into this. Then I saw it clearly. It was 4 years ago. Michael came home one Sunday with her, hanging on his arm, smiling as if he had won the lottery. She was 28 then, he 32. "Mom, Dad, I want to introduce you to someone very special." Adriana entered our living room with sure, almost rehearsed steps. She wore a white dress with small flowers, her hair loose, falling in perfect waves over her shoulders, low heels, natural makeup. Everything calculated to look innocent. "Very nice to meet you. Mrs. Elena," she extended her hand with a warm smile. "Michael has told me so much about you." Julian was enchanted from the first moment. "What a polite girl," he told me afterward when they left. "And you can tell she loves our son." I didn't say anything, but something in my stomach didn't feel right. Maybe it was the way her eyes scanned the house when she entered, not with curiosity, but with evaluation. As if she were measuring every piece of furniture, every painting, every inch of our life. Maybe it was the way she touched the porcelain vase at the entrance and asked in that sweet voice, "Is this antique? It must be worth a fortune." Or maybe it was simply a mother's instinct, that uncomfortable tingle that tells you this person is not what she seems. But Michael was in love. And when a son is in love, we mothers become invisible. They got married 6 months later. A big, expensive wedding, which Julian and I paid for almost entirely. Adriana said her family couldn't contribute much because they came from a humble background. We, of course, understood, or so we thought. After the wedding, things changed little by little. So slowly that you almost don't notice it. Like when a plant withers, it doesn't die suddenly. It fades leaf by leaf. First came the family dinners. Adriana always had an excuse to arrive late or leave early. "I have work. I have a headache. Michael and I have plans." Then she started giving her opinion on everything. "Mother-in-law, don't you think this living room needs a renovation? It looks a little outdated? Julian, I've seen some incredible properties in Beverly Hills. You should invest before prices go up. Michael told me you have land in Arizona. Wouldn't it be better to sell it and put that money to work?" She always talked about money, about investments, about properties. And Julian, who was a noble but trusting man, began to listen to her. "She's smart, Elena," he told me. "She has business vision." I tried to warn him more than once. "Julian, that girl only talks about money." "Doesn't that seem strange to you?" He would laugh. "You're exaggerating, my love. She just wants to help." But I wasn't exaggerating. I remember the day I found a credit card in Julian's jacket pocket, a card I didn't recognize. I checked it. It was in his name, but Adriana was the authorized user. Expenses, hundreds of thousands of dollars on clothes, restaurants, travel, all paid for by my husband. When I confronted him, Julian became uncomfortable. I lent her the card a couple of times for emergencies. Emergencies? I showed him the statement. "Is a $5,000 handbag an emergency? Elena, please. She's our son's wife. What do you want me to do? Tell her no?" That was the first time we fought because of her. And it wasn't the last. Adriana began visiting Julian in his office. "Just to ask for advice," Michael would say, but I knew there was something more. I saw how my husband came home quieter, more distant. One day I found him in his study, his head in his hands. "What's wrong, my love?" "Nothing. I'm just tired." "Julian, talk to me." He looked up. His eyes were tired, sad. "I signed some papers that maybe I shouldn't have." My heart stopped. "What papers?" Adriana asked me to help her with an investment. She said it was urgent, that Michael was worried about the future. I just wanted to help. How much? $200,000. I felt the floor open beneath my feet. "Julian, are you crazy?" "I know. I know it was stupid, but she said she would pay it back, that it was just temporary. Of course, she never paid anything back. And when I tried to talk to Michael, he defended her. Mom, you're being unfair. Adriana isn't like that. You don't know her like I do. Michael, open your eyes. That woman is using your father. Enough. His voice exploded in the living room. You've always mistrusted her since day one. You know what? Adriana was right. She said you would never accept me being happy. Those words broke me because they weren't my son's words. They were her words coming out of his mouth. Adriana had poisoned him. Not with a substance, but with ideas, with lies, with that terrible ability some people have to make you doubt your own reality. And while I was losing my son, Julian got sick. It started with tiredness, then dizziness, then stomach aches that the doctors couldn't explain. It's stress, they said. Rest more. But I knew it wasn't stress because every time Adriana visited him, Julian got worse. Until one day at the hospital, while I was in Dallas visiting my sick sister, Julian had a sudden cardiac arrest, and the only person with him at that moment was Adriana. Now sitting on my bed with the cold sheets in the silent house, I understood everything. Adriana hadn't entered this family for love. She had entered to destroy us. And the worst of it all, she had succeeded. But there was still one thing she couldn't take from me: my will to fight. Tomorrow I would meet with Dr. Vargas. Tomorrow I would know the truth about what happened in that hospital. And when I had the answers, Adriana would discover that she underestimated the wrong woman. Because a mother can forgive many things, but never, never will she forgive the one who took the love of her life. And I had just decided that forgiveness was no longer an option. The next morning, I woke up with an icy certainty in my chest. I needed proof. I needed something concrete, tangible, that couldn't be ignored or dismissed as a widow's paranoia, something that even Michael couldn't deny. And that something was in my garage. I went downstairs, still in my robe, my hair in a messy braid. The sun had just begun to creep through the windows, tinging everything a pale orange. The house smelled of old coffee and silence. I made myself a cup of tea that I didn't drink. My hands were trembling too much. At 80, I called Don Sam. He had been Julian's trusted mechanic for over 20 years, a man in his 60s with grease-stained hands and unshakable honesty. If anyone could tell me the truth about what was in my car, it was him. Elena nena. His voice sounded surprised on the other end of the line. How are you? I'm so sorry about Julian. Thank you, Sam. I need you to come to my house. It's urgent. Is something wrong with the car? I don't know. That's what I need you to tell me. There was a pause. I'll be right there. He arrived half an hour later in his battered truck that smelled of burnt oil and cigarettes. He brought his toolbox and that serious expression he wore when things were important. Show me the car, Mom. I took him to the garage. My gray sedan was parked in the same spot where I left it after Skinny's scream. I hadn't touched it since then. I hadn't dared. Sam knelt down in front of the hood, opened it carefully, and didn't say anything for several minutes. He just checked, touched, and moved cables. His frown deepened. Oh my God, he murmured. My stomach clenched. What is it? He took a small flashlight from his pocket and shone it onto the engine. Then he turned to look at me with an expression I had never seen on him, pure fear. Elena, did you start this car after parking it here? No, someone warned me not to. Thank God. He wiped his hands on a dirty rag and motioned for me to come closer. Come here. Look at this. I approached, although every step was difficult. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Sam pointed to a cable that was cleanly cut, almost surgically. This is the cable that connects the ignition system to the fuel pump. It's cut, not broken. Cut with something sharp. A blade, probably. I felt my throat close up. And what does that mean? It means someone didn't want the car to start right away. They wanted you to insist, to try several times. Why? He took something out with a pair of tweezers. It was a plastic bag about 3.5 inches, with a volatile mixture placed over the exhaust manifold. The ignition cable had been sliced with a knife, a setup compatible with secondary ignition and instant explosion. My breath stopped. What would have happened if I had insisted on starting it? Sam looked me straight in the eyes. The heat would have melted the bag. The liquid would have dripped onto the hot engine. And with the sparks from the starter, he paused. It would have exploded, Elena. You would have exploded. My legs gave out. I had to lean against the garage wall to keep from falling. The world spun. Are you sure? Completely. This is not an accident. This is not vandalism by some idiot kid. This is, he swallowed, attempted murder. The words hung in the air, heavy as stones. Attempted murder. Someone had wanted to kill me. Someone had planned for me to burn to death inside my own car, in my own garage with no witnesses, no escape, and that someone was Adriana. Sam, my voice came out as a broken whisper. I need you to document all of this. Photos, videos, whatever is necessary. I was already thinking that. He pulled out his cell phone. I'm going to record everything and then we should call the police. No, not yet. He looked at me confused. Elena, this is serious. If someone tried, I know, but I need more proof. I need this to be irrefutable because the person who did this, my voice trembled, is my daughter-in-law. And if I'm going to accuse her, I need there to be no doubt. None. Sam carefully closed the hood, as if the car were a bomb that could still explode. Your daughter-in-law, Adriana. I nodded. A homeless man saw her. He saw her and another man here in the dead of night tampering with the car. Sam shook his head, incredulous. My God, but why? What does she gain by everything? Tears began to roll down my cheeks. She gains everything. The inheritance, the properties, total control over my son. If I disappear, she gets it all. Sam cursed under his breath. He put away his tools with abrupt, angry movements. This isn't going to end like this, Elena. I won't let anything happen to you. Nothing is going to happen to me, I said, wiping my tears with the back of my hand, because now I know what she is capable of. And I'm not going to give her another chance. Sam finished recording everything. He transferred the videos to my cell phone. Every cut cable, every angle of the scorched bag, every inch of evidence. What are you going to do now? He asked before leaving. I'm going to meet with someone, a doctor who worked with Julian at the hospital. And then I'm going to build a case so solid that not even the best lawyer in the world can defend her. Sam put a hand on my shoulder. Julian would be proud of you. Those words broke me and rebuilt me at the same time. When he left, I stayed in the garage, looking at the car that almost became my coffin. And something inside me changed forever. It wasn't just pain I felt anymore. It was fury. A cold, calculated, relentless fury. Adriana had tried to erase me from this world. She had tried to turn me into ashes to keep everything Julian and I built, but she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She thought a 68-year-old widow would be easy to eliminate. She thought no one would listen to me. She thought she could get away with it. But she was about to discover that the most dangerous woman in the world is the one who has nothing left to lose. And I had just lost everything. I saved the videos. Later, a private investigator, Robert, would present them to the police. Now, I only had one mission, to get justice. And I wouldn't stop until I saw her pay for every tear, every lie, every betrayal. The game was just beginning, and this time, I would set the rules. I had 3 hours before my meeting with Dr. Vargas. 3 hours that I decided to use to find Skinny. He was the only person who had seen Adriana that night, the only witness to her crime. And I needed his full testimony, every detail, every word he could remember. Because if I was going to confront her, I needed weapons. And witnesses are the best weapons. I left my house with the sun already high in the sky. I wore my crossbody bag, cash, and a determination that burned inside me like fire. I looked for him first on the corner, where I had seen him that morning. He wasn't there. I asked a street vendor selling hot dogs. Have you seen a skinny man with dirty clothes who is usually around here? The vendor looked at me suspiciously. Why are you looking for him? He saved my life. I want to thank him. His expression softened. Sometimes I see him by the market or in the park near the back benches. Several people sleep there. I thanked him and walked toward the market. My legs weren't as strong as before, but the urgency gave me strength. I passed the fruit stalls, the meat stalls, the bakery, the smell of freshly baked bread mixed with that of flowers and fish. And then I saw him. He was sitting on the ground, leaning against the back wall of the market with a plastic bag next to him. His head was bowed, his eyes closed. For a moment I thought he was sleeping, but when I approached, he looked up. His eyes instantly recognized me. Mom, he murmured, trying to stand up. No, stay there. I knelt down in front of him, ignoring the pain in my knees. I came looking for you. He blinked, confused. Me? Yes, I need you to tell me everything you saw that night. Everything, without omitting anything. Skinny swallowed. His hands trembled. I already told you, Mom. I saw your daughter-in-law and a man. But I need more. What time exactly? What did the man look like? What else did they do? He looked down, nervous. I don't want trouble. I took out my wallet and put 5 $100 bills in his hand. His eyes widened. It's not about trouble. It's about justice. That money is yours, and there will be more if you help me stop her. He stared at the bills as if he couldn't believe they were real. Then he quickly put them in his pocket and took a deep breath. All right, I'll tell you everything. Go ahead. It was around 2 in the morning. I was there on your street corner. I always sleep there because there are fewer cops to kick me out. I was half asleep when I heard a car park near your house. I peeked out. It was a black fancy car. 2 people got out, a woman and a man. What did the man look like? Tall. He wore a dark suit, short hair. I couldn't see his face well because he was wearing a cap. But he walked like someone used to being in charge, you know what I mean? With a straight back, fearless. I nodded, absorbing every word. And the woman, I recognized her. I've seen her at your house before. It's your daughter-in-law. She wore black pants and a hooded jacket. But I saw her well when she passed under the streetlight. It was her for sure. What did they do? They approached your car. The man opened the hood. I don't know how. Maybe he had tools. They were there for about 10 minutes. She was lighting up with her cell phone. He was putting his hands in the engine. They were talking softly, but I could hear a little. What were they saying? Skinny closed his eyes, concentrating. She was saying, "Is it done?" And he answered, "Yes, but you have to make sure she tries to start it several times. If not, it won't work." And she said she will. She's always stubborn. And then they laughed. The blood froze in my veins. Stubborn. She knew me. She knew that if my car didn't start the first time, I would insist once, twice, 3 times until it exploded. Anything else? My voice was barely a thread. Yes. Before leaving, she gave him something. An envelope. And the man said, "This makes us even." Then they got in the car and left. Did you see the license plate? No, Mom. It was too dark, but the car was a BMW. One of those new black ones with chrome rims. I opened my purse and took out my cell phone. Would you be able to recognize the man if you saw him again? Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see his face. Well, what if I show you photos? Could be. I started thinking, who was this man? An accomplice? A lover? Someone Adriana paid to do her dirty work. Skinny, I need you to do something for me. Something very important. He looked at me with those tired but attentive eyes. Tell me. I want you to come with me to a safe place. I'm going to pay for a hotel room for a few days, and I need you to write down everything you just told me with all the details you remember. Can you do that? I don't write very well, Mom. It doesn't matter. I'll help you, but I need your testimony to be recorded because the time will come when you'll have to repeat this in front of other people. Do you understand? He nodded slowly. In front of the police, maybe. Or in front of a judge. Skinny turned pale. Ma'am, I can't get involved in those things. I have a record. Small thefts. Nothing serious. But if they see me in court, nothing will happen to you. I put a hand on his shoulder. I promise you I will protect you. But I need you to help me because that woman not only tried to kill me, she also killed my husband. And if we don't stop her, she'll do it again. His eyes filled with something like compassion. Your husband was good to me. He treated me like a person, not like trash. So help me get justice for him. There was a long silence. The market noise continued around us. Voices, laughter, the clatter of knives against the wooden boards, but in that small corner, it was just him and me, connected by a terrible truth. Finally, Skinny nodded. All right, I'll do it. I helped him stand up. He was lighter than I thought, pure skin and bones. I took him to a modest but clean hotel near downtown. I paid for a week. I bought him new clothes, soap, food. And that afternoon, sitting in the small room that smelled of detergent, we wrote his testimony together. Every word, every detail, every second of that cursed night. When we finished, I took a picture of him with my cell phone, holding it in his hands, his signature at the bottom. Keep it safe, I told him. This paper can change everything. He folded it carefully and put it under the mattress. Ma'am, do you really think this will help? I looked him straight in the eyes. Skinny, you are the only person in the world who saw what she did. You are invisible to society, I know. But right now, you are the most important person in my life because you have the truth. And the truth always, always ends up winning. He smiled for the first time, a broken but real smile. Thank you for believing me, Mom. Thank you for having the courage to speak. I left the hotel with a lighter heart. I had a witness. I had evidence from the car, and in an hour I would have the answers about what happened at the hospital. Adriana had built her empire on lies, but I was about to tear it down piece by piece until nothing was left. I arrived at the cafe across from the hospital 15 minutes before. 3. I sat at a table by the window from where I could see the entrance of St. Jude, that white 5-story building that once seemed like a place of hope now looked like a mausoleum. Julian had died in there. Adriana had let him die in there. I ordered a coffee that I didn't drink. I just held it in my hands, feeling the warmth of the disposable cup, trying to calm the trembling that wouldn't go away. At 3 sharp, a man entered the cafe. In his 50s, graying hair, a medical coat under a gray jacket, round glasses, serious look. He searched with his eyes. When he saw me, he nodded. He approached my table and extended his hand. Mrs. Hughes, I'm Dr. Vargas. Thank you for coming. He sat down across from me, ordered a black coffee, and for a moment didn't say anything. He just looked at me, evaluating me as if trying to decide if I was strong enough to hear what he had to say. Finally he spoke. I shouldn't be here. What I'm about to tell you could cost me my job, maybe even my license, but I can't keep quiet any longer. My heart beat faster. Tell me the truth, please. He took a thin folder from his backpack. He placed it on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were printed sheets, medical studies, graphs. Your husband arrived at the hospital on the 18th of September. He complained of dizziness, abdominal pain, nausea. We thought it was acute gastritis. We admitted him to hydrate him and do tests. I nodded. I already knew all that. For the first 2 days, his condition was stable, uncomfortable, but stable. But then he paused. He started to get worse quickly. Too quickly. What happened? His vital signs began to fail. Tachycardia, irregular blood pressure, mental confusion, and the strangest thing, his blood tests showed elevated potassium levels, much, much higher than normal. And what does that mean? Severe hyperkalemia can cause a sudden cardiac arrest. But the strange thing is that he had no medical reason for those levels. He wasn't diabetic. He didn't have kidney problems. He wasn't taking medications that would justify it. I felt something cold run down my spine. Are you saying that? I'm saying that someone could have administered potassium to him externally in high doses without anyone realizing it. The cafe seemed to spin around me. Who? How? I don't know, but I know who had unlimited access to his room. Who was with him in the last hours of his life? Who was there when no one else could be? Adriana, he nodded slowly. Your daughter-in-law. Yes, I covered my mouth with my hands. Tears erupted uncontrollably. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Julian hadn't died of a natural heart attack. He had been murdered. And I wasn't there to protect him. Why didn't you say anything? My voice was broken, desperate. Why didn't you investigate it? Dr. Vargas looked down, ashamed. I tried. I spoke with the hospital director. I showed him the analysis. I told him that something wasn't right. But he told me that we couldn't make accusations without irrefutable proof, that an autopsy needed the family's consent. And your daughter-in-law? She refused. The lawyer Solace advised that cremation would be the most dignified and sanitary. Michael signed, trusting his word. What? She said she didn't want to desecrate her father-in-law's body, that it was disrespectful, that Julian would have wanted to rest in peace. And your son supported her. I closed my eyes. Michael, my own son, had unknowingly blocked the investigation, so they cremated him, I whispered. Yes. And with that, any possibility of proving what happened was lost. I fell silent. The cafe noise felt distant, unreal. Voices, cups clinking, the steam from the coffee machines. Everything felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. Doctor, do you think she did it? He looked me straight in the eyes. Yes, I believe your daughter-in-law poisoned your husband. I can't prove it, but in 25 years of my career, I've seen many deaths. And this one was not natural. Tears rolled freely down my cheeks. How did she do it? It could have been with potassium supplements. They are easy to get. They are sold without a prescription. In normal doses, they are harmless. But in high doses mixed in food or drink, they are lethal. And the worst part, they leave very little trace, especially if the body is cremated. I felt empty, as if someone had ripped out my soul. He trusted her, I said in a trembling voice. Julian trusted everyone. It was his greatest virtue and his undoing. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Hughes. Can I keep these documents? He pushed the folder toward me. They are copies. Use them as you need to. If this goes to trial, I will testify. I don't care what happens to me. Your husband deserves justice. I squeezed his hand tightly. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. When Dr. Vargas left, I stayed seated in that cafe for almost an hour. I couldn't move. I couldn't cry anymore. I was just there looking out the window, watching people go in and out of the hospital. Worried families, sick people walking slowly, doctors in a hurry, and me, a 68-year-old widow carrying the weight of an unbearable truth. Julian had been murdered. My husband, the love of my life, the father of my children, had been slowly poisoned by the woman we trusted, the woman we called family. And the worst of it all, my son still didn't believe me. Michael had called me paranoid. He had told me to stop inventing things. He had told me that Adriana was innocent. How do you tell a son that his wife is a murderer? How do you destroy his world to save the truth? I got up from the table. I paid. I walked out onto the street. The cold afternoon air hit my face, but I didn't feel it. I walked aimlessly for a while. I passed a church. I hesitated. It had been years since I had entered one, but something pushed me inside. The interior was almost empty, just an old woman praying in the first row and the smell of incense floating in the air. I sat on a back pew and looked toward the altar. Julian, I whispered, I couldn't protect you. Forgive me. The tears returned, silent and bitter, but I swear to you on everything I love that she will pay. I swear it. Even if it costs me everything I have left, she will pay. I left the church with swollen eyes, but with something new in my chest. Purpose. It wasn't just pain I felt anymore. It was determination. Adriana had destroyed my family. She had killed my husband. She had tried to kill me. But she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated me. She thought an older woman alone, without power, would be easy to eliminate. But she was wrong, because pain can break you, or it can turn you into something stronger than you ever imagined. And I had just decided that my pain was not going to destroy me. It was going to be my weapon. And with that weapon, I was going to get justice, even if it was the last thing I did in this life. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake at the dining room table, surrounded by papers, photos, and bank documents. Everything spread out like the pieces of a macabre puzzle, and I was in the center trying to piece together the complete image of the betrayal. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed professional help, someone who knew how to move in the shadows, someone who could find what I couldn't see. And I knew the perfect person, Robert Sedano. He had been Julian's partner more than 15 years ago in the first construction projects. A brilliant, meticulous man with that rare ability to see what others ignore. But after a legal problem that almost ruined him, Robert left the business world and dedicated himself to something else: private investigation. Julian always said that Robert had a bloodhound's nose, and I needed exactly that. I called him at 7 in the morning. "Ella nena." His voice sounded surprised. "It's been a while. I'm so sorry about Julian. He was a great man. Thank you, Robert. I need to see you. It's urgent." There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No, but I will be. Can you meet with me today?" "Tell me where." 2 hours later, we were sitting in a discreet restaurant in the downtown area. Robert arrived with a worn leather briefcase and that penetrating gaze that had always intimidated me a little. 52 years old, short hair with graying temples, a 3-day beard, and a dark suit without a tie. He sat across from me and got straight to the point. "What do you need?" I told him everything, every word, every detail. Skinny's scream, the cut cable, the bag of gasoline, the modified will, the town rumors, the meeting with Dr. Vargas, the poisoning, the bank transfers. Robert didn't interrupt me once. He just listened, taking notes in a small notebook with a black pen. His eyes never left mine. When I finished, he closed the notebook and exhaled slowly. "This is serious, Elena Nena. Very serious, I know. If what you're saying is true, your daughter-in-law is not just a thief. She's a murderer. That's why I need proof. Proof that a judge can't ignore. Proof that forces my son to open his eyes." Robert leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "How much money do you have available?" "Whatever it takes, because this is not going to be cheap." We're going to need to trace bank accounts, get phone records, investigate her past, maybe hire surveillance, and everything has to be done with absolute discretion. If she finds out you're investigating her, I know she could disappear or worse, try to kill me again. Exactly. I pulled out a check I had prepared that morning, $50,000. I put it on the table. This is just the down payment. Robert looked at the check, then looked at me. Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we open this box, there's no turning back. What we find could change your life forever. My life has already changed, Robert. I've already lost my husband. I've already lost my son's trust. I almost lost my own life. I have nothing more to lose except my dignity, and I'm not going to give that away. He smiled slightly, a sad but respectful smile. Julian was right about you. He always said you were the stronger one of the two. He took the check and put it away. All right, I accept the case, but we're going to do this my way. No emotions, just facts, just solid evidence. Agreed. For the next 10 days, Robert worked in silence. I continued with my normal life, or at least pretended to. I went to the market. I visited my sister. I tended the garden. I smiled when necessary. But inside, every second was a torture of waiting. Robert called me every 2 days to update me. First call. I found something interesting. Adriana is not really named Adriana Carter. She changed her name 8 years ago. Her original name was Adriana Miller, and she has a record. What kind of record? Minor fraud. 10 years ago, she was accused of scamming an elderly man in Phoenix. The case was closed because the man died before the trial. My blood ran cold. He died? Heart attack. At least that's what the death certificate says. But the coincidences are starting to be too many, don't you think? Second call. The transfers you found are not the only ones. There are more, many more. A total of $600,000. $400,000 before his death and $200,000 after. All made during the last year, all to accounts Adriana controlled. But the interesting thing is that some of those transfers were made from his personal account after he was hospitalized. That's impossible. He was unconscious. Exactly. Which means someone had access to his banking passwords, and there is only one person who could have had them. Third call. I hired surveillance. Adriana has met 3 times in the last week with a man. Same guy your witness described? Tall, dark suit, dark black BMW. I got photos. I'm sending them to you. Minutes later, the photos arrived on my cell phone, and what I saw took my breath away. The man in the suit was George Solis, corporate lawyer, specialist in wills and estates, and the same lawyer who was present the day the will was read at the law office. Everything started to fit together. George had helped Adriana falsify the documents to change the will to move the money. And he was probably the one who cut the cable of my car that night. It wasn't just one conspirator. It was an entire network. Fourth call. The most important one. La nena, I need you to come to my office now. I found something you have to see. I arrived in less than half an hour. Robert was waiting for me with his computer on. On the screen were scanned documents. Look at this. He zoomed in on the image. It's the modified will, the one that was read at the law office. Yes, I've seen it. Now look at this. He opened another document. This is Julian's signature on old contracts. Notice the slant of the J, the shape of the O, the space between the letters. I looked at it. Now look at the signature on the modified will. The comparison was evident. It wasn't the same signature. It was good, very good, almost perfect, but it wasn't identical. It's fake, I whispered. Correct. Julian never signed that will. Someone did it for him, and that someone is very professional. Probably George. Lawyers know how to copy signatures. It's part of their forensic training. I felt my legs tremble. This is enough, right? With this, we can go to the police. Robert shook his head. It's a good start, but it's not enough for an arrest. We need more. We need a confession, or at least something that ties them directly to the crime. And how do we get that? He looked at me with that intensity that gave me chills. By setting a trap for them. My heart beat faster. What kind of trap? One they can't refuse. One where they feel safe. Where they let down their guard. And where every word they say is recorded. I smiled for the first time in days. Tell me what I have to do. And so began the final phase of my revenge. I was no longer just a widow looking for answers. I was a woman armed with proof, with witnesses, with a plan. And Adriana was about to discover that the worst mistake you can make in life is to underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. Because when a woman decides to fight for her truth, there is no lie strong enough to stop her. And I was just getting started. The plan was simple but dangerous. Robert designed it with surgical precision. Every detail, every move, every word I would have to say. You have to make her feel like she won, he explained in his office. That you're no longer a threat, that you gave up. Only then will she let down her guard? And how do I do that? By calling her, inviting her to dinner, telling her you want to make peace, that you're tired of fighting, that you want to sign the property division in peace and move on with your life. The mere thought of pretending to be nice to her made my stomach churn. I don't know if I can. Robert put a hand on my shoulder. I know it's hard, but it's the only way. If you confront her directly, she'll run. Or worse, she'll hire better lawyers and bury everything. We need her to feel safe, to talk. And when she talks, we'll catch her. And the cameras. I'm going to install 3. 1 in the living room, hidden in the wall clock. Another in the dining room in the decorative plant. And 1 more in the kitchen just in case. High-definition audio, HD video. Everything will go directly to an encrypted server. Even if they destroy the cameras, the recording will be safe. And what if she doesn't say anything incriminating? She will. People like Adriana can't resist boasting, especially when they think they've won. You just have to subtly provoke her. Ask her casual questions. Let her ego do the rest. He gave me a list of key phrases I had to mention during dinner. Phrases like, Julian always trusted you. I never understood why he changed so much in his last months. Sometimes I wonder what really happened at the hospital. The car. How lucky I didn't start it that day. Each one designed to sow doubt, to provoke a reaction, so that Adriana couldn't avoid defending herself, or even better, justifying herself. I practiced in front of the mirror for 2 days. A kind smile, a tired but conciliatory voice, gestures of defeat. It had to be perfect because if she suspected anything, everything would fall apart. Finally, one Thursday afternoon, I called her. My hand was shaking when I dialed her number. Elena. Her voice sounded surprised. Adriana. Hi, how are you? Fine. And you? I didn't expect your call, I know. I need to talk to you and to Michael, but especially to you. There was a cautious pause. What is it about? I want you to come to my house for dinner this Saturday. I need to make peace. I'm tired of all this pain, of the fighting, of the mistrust. Julian wouldn't have wanted this. I could hear her mental gears turning on the other end of the line. Are you sure? Completely. I want to sign the pending papers, close this chapter, and move on. We all deserve peace, don't you think? Her voice softened. She thought she had won. That sounds perfect, Elena. Michael is going to be happy to hear this. He's been so worried about you, I know. I'm worried about him too. About all of us. I'll expect you at 8. I'll prepare something special. We'll be there. I hung up and let out the breath I didn't know I was holding. Robert, who had been listening from the other room, came in with a smile. Perfect. She fell for it completely. Now all that's left is for everything to go well on Saturday. It will go well. Trust the process. On Friday, Robert arrived early to install the cameras. He worked for 3 hours adjusting angles, testing audio, making sure everything was invisible but functional. When he finished, he showed me how it looked from his laptop. The living room, the dining room, the kitchen, all in a split screen, clear image, clear audio. Remember he told me before leaving, stay calm. Don't accuse her of anything. Just let her talk. The truth always comes out when people feel comfortable. Saturday arrived like a silent storm. I spent the day cooking. I prepared roast turkey, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Michael's favorite dessert, apple pie. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth we used on special occasions. Candles, fresh flowers, everything had to look authentic. At 8 sharp, the doorbell rang. I opened the door with a smile that hurt my soul. Michael came in first. He looked tired but hopeful. He hugged me tightly. Thank you for this, Mom. Thank you for coming, my love. Adriana entered behind him, elegant as always. A tight black dress, heels, perfect hair. That smile I now recognized as pure falsehood. Elena Nena, you look lovely, and it smells delicious. Thank you, dear. Come in, sit down. We sat down at the table. I served the food. We talked about trivial things at first. The weather, traffic, the news. Michael seemed relaxed, happy to see us together without fighting. Adriana, on the other hand, watched me, still cautious, still evaluating. Then as I served more wine, I dropped the first key phrase. You know, Adriana, despite everything, I know Julian trusted you a lot. She smiled. He was a wonderful man, very generous. He was sometimes too much. I paused. I never understood why he changed so much in his last months. He became so distant. Adriana took a sip of wine, thoughtful. I think he was tired. Work, stress, you know how business is. Maybe. But it was strange, especially when he started getting sick. The doctors never found a clear explanation. I looked her straight in the eyes. She held my gaze without blinking. Sometimes life is just like that, Elena Nena. Unfair, inexplicable. I suppose so. I wiped my mouth with the napkin. I'm glad you were with him at the hospital. I couldn't have stood for him to die alone. Someone had to be there. Her voice had an almost proud tone. Someone who knew how to take good care of him. Michael interrupted, uncomfortable. Mom, maybe we shouldn't talk about this now. You're right, my love. I'm sorry, I smiled. It's just that sometimes I wonder what would have happened if things had been different. Adriana leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. Different how? I don't know if I had been there, if I had insisted that more doctors check him. Yes. I paused dramatically. If I had started the car that day, the silence that followed was electric. Adriana blinked only once, but it was enough. What car? She asked, but her voice sounded forced. My car? A few weeks ago. It had a strange mechanical problem. The mechanic said it was almost like someone had sabotaged it. I laughed softly. But that would be ridiculous, right? She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers tightened around the wine glass. Ridiculous, she finally repeated. But her smile no longer reached her eyes, and I knew at that moment that I had her. That every word that came out of her mouth from now on would be recorded, and that the trap had just closed. All that was left was to wait for her to hang herself with her own tongue, because the truth always finds a way out, especially when you push it with the right questions. The dinner continued for another hour. I kept up my role as the tired, conciliatory widow. Adriana, on the other hand, was starting to show cracks, small ones, almost imperceptible, but they were there. She nervously touched her neck. She drank wine faster than normal. She looked toward the door every so often, as if she wanted to escape. But most importantly, she talked too much. She started to boast, to justify herself, to explain things that no one had asked her. Julian asked me to take care of his accounts because he trusted me, she said while cutting a piece of pie. He said I had a better head for numbers than Michael. No offense, honey. Michael smiled uncomfortably. Don't be offended, Mom, but it's true. I was always terrible with finances. I know, my darling. I looked at Adriana. And it's admirable that Julian trusted you so much. Although I must confess, I was surprised he moved so much money without telling me anything. She put the fork down on the plate. They were investments, opportunities that couldn't wait. He understood that, of course. I paused, as if remembering something. The bank called me a few days ago. They said there were transfers after Julian was in the hospital unconscious. How strange, right? Adriana became rigid. They must be mistaken. Banks make mistakes all the time. Maybe, I smiled sweetly. Or maybe someone had his passwords. Silence fell like an anvil. Michael looked at us confused, sensing the tension but not understanding its origin. Adriana, on the other hand, stared at me intently. Her eyes were no longer sweet. They were hard, calculating. Elena, where are you trying to go with all this? Nowhere, dear. I'm just trying to understand how things work to close this chapter in peace, like we said. She didn't answer. She just picked up her wine glass and emptied it in one gulp. Then I decided to launch the final blow. You know, I met someone a few weeks ago, a homeless man. He told me a very interesting story about a woman and a man in a dark suit who were near my car one night. The glass almost fell from her hands. What? Yes, what a coincidence, right? Right before I discovered the mechanical problem. Adriana stood up abruptly. The chair scraped against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. Michael, we're leaving. But Michael had also stood up, looking at me with a mixture of confusion and anger. Mom, what is going on? What are you talking about? Ask your wife, I said in a calm but firm voice. This is ridiculous. Adriana grabbed her purse. Your mother is paranoid, Michael. I already told you she needs professional help. Paranoid? I stood up slowly, keeping my composure. You know what's funny, Adriana? That a paranoid person wouldn't have this. I took out my cell phone and put the photos Robert had sent me on the table. Adriana with George Solis in restaurants, in parking lots, in his car. Michael's eyes widened. What is this? Your wife with the lawyer who modified your father's will. The same lawyer who was present at the reading. The same man who, according to my witness, helped her sabotage my car. Adriana backed away, pale. That doesn't prove anything. George is a colleague, a friend who helped you steal $600,000, a friend who forged Julian's signature, a friend who tried to kill me. You're lying. Do you want me to call the doctor who treated your father-in-law? The one who found abnormal levels of potassium in his blood? The one who suspected he was poisoned? Michael took a step back as if he had been punched. No, it can't be. Adriana turned to him, fake tears instantly starting to flow. Honey, don't believe her. She's making everything up. She's jealous. She has always hated me. But Michael was looking at her differently now, as if seeing her for the first time. I just wanted to be respected, she said, her voice trembling for an instant. I was always the guest, never the owner. Then she hardened again. Your father was an idiot. Is it true? His voice was broken. Did you poison my father? No, of course not. This is crazy. Answer me. His scream echoed through the house. Adriana opened her mouth, then she closed it. Her eyes darted from me to Michael, looking for an exit that didn't exist. And then she did the worst thing she could have done. She smiled, a cold, calculated smile, devoid of any pretense of innocence. Your father was an idiot, she said with a cutting voice. A foolish old man who signed whatever just to be made to feel important. It was so easy to manipulate him. It was laughable. Michael backed away as if he had been stabbed. My God. And you know what? Adriana continued, now unrestrained. I only regret one thing, not finishing the job with her. 2, she pointed at me with contempt. But don't worry. There's still time. She pulled something from her purse, a small silver sharp knife. Michael screamed, Adriana, no! But she was already lunging toward me. I didn't have time to think, only to react. I moved to the side. The knife grazed my arm, tearing the sleeve of my blouse, and then the front door burst open. Robert ran in, followed by 2 uniformed police officers, on the ground. Drop the weapon, one of them shouted as they aimed at Adriana. Robert, without losing his composure, showed the officers that the cameras were broadcasting everything in real time to the secure server. Adriana froze. The knife fell from her hands. Her face went from hatred to panic in a second. The police subdued her and handcuffed her. As they dragged her toward the door, she screamed, This is a setup! She provoked me. They trapped me. Robert approached me. Are you okay? I nodded, still shaking. You recorded everything, right? Every word, every movement, it's on the server. Irrefutable. Michael was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands, sobbing like a child. I knelt beside him and hugged him. I'm so sorry, son. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. His voice was a broken whisper. Mom, forgive me. I didn't believe you. I thought you were... Shh, it's over. It's over. The police took Adriana away. Her screams faded into the distance. Robert approached with a serious expression. They're going to arrest George Solis, too. With the recordings and the bank evidence, both are going to spend many years in prison. And the fake will, it will be invalidated. Everything will go back to how it should have been from the beginning. The properties, the money, everything returns to you and your children. I closed my eyes. The relief hit me like a wave. It wasn't joy I felt. It was justice. Julian could rest in peace. And I finally could breathe. The nightmare was over. But I knew the wounds would take a long time to heal. Because recovering your life is one thing. Recovering your son's trust is another. And that night, holding Michael on my dining room floor, I knew that the real work was just beginning. Not the work of revenge, but the work of reconstruction, and that, I would discover later, was the most difficult of all. Several weeks passed since that night of the trap. Time was no longer measured in days, but in hearings and statements. The following months were a hurricane of lawyers, statements, hearings, and papers. Adriana was formally accused of fraud, falsification of documents, attempted murder, and although they couldn't fully prove it due to the cremation of the body, conspiracy in Julian's death. George Solis, the accomplice lawyer, was arrested in his office 2 days later. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the bank transfers, and the testimony of Skinny, the homeless man who saw everything, sealed the guilt of both. They had no defense. The trial lasted 4 months. I attended every hearing, sitting in the same pew, in the same dark clothes, staring intently at Adriana every time she entered the room in handcuffs. She never returned my gaze. Her lawyer tried everything. He alleged temporary insanity, then psychological manipulation, Then that I had provoked her, that it was all self-defense. But the recordings didn't lie. The cameras had no bias. And the jury, 12 people who didn't know her, saw the same thing I had seen from the beginning. A woman without scruples, capable of anything for money. On the day of the verdict, the room was full. Relatives, journalists, curious people drawn by the scandal. Michael was sitting next to me, pale, his hands clasped over his knees. He had lost so much weight in those months that he looked like a different person. When the judge asked the jury for their verdict, the silence was absolute. Have you reached a verdict? Yes, Your Honor. How do you find the defendant, Adriana Miller, on the charges of fraud, falsification, and attempted homicide? Guilty on all counts. I heard Michael let out a shaky sigh. I felt nothing, just a strange emptiness, as if something inside me had shut off and couldn't be turned back on. The judge struck the gavel. The sentence will be 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole before serving at least 12 years. 18 years. Adriana was 32. She would get out at 50 if she got out at all. I saw her stand up, handcuffed, escorted by 2 officers. For a moment she turned her head toward me. Our eyes met. There was no anger in her gaze. There was no regret, only emptiness. And then they took her out of the room. George Solis received 15 years. His career destroyed, his reputation in ruins. After the sentencing, Robert was waiting for me in the courthouse hallway. Justice was done, he said. I nodded but couldn't smile. Why don't I feel better? He put a hand on my shoulder. Because justice doesn't erase the pain, Elena. It just closes the circle. The rest you have to do yourself. He was right. 2 weeks later, the fake will was officially annulled. The 3 properties Adriana had stolen were returned to my name. The $600,000 she had moved were traced and recovered. Everything Julian built during his life returned to where it should always have been, with his legitimate family. But the money no longer mattered to me. What mattered to me was something else. One Sunday afternoon, Michael came to visit me. He brought flowers, white lilies, my favorites. We sat on the porch under the soft afternoon sun with the sound of the birds in the background. For a long time, we didn't speak. Finally, he broke the silence. Mom, I'll never be able to ask for enough forgiveness. You don't need to. Yes, I do. His voice broke. I failed you. I failed, Dad. I let that woman destroy everything. And the worst part is that I didn't believe you. I called you paranoid. I turned my back on you when you needed me most. I put my hand on his. You were in love, and love is blind. I know better than anyone. It's no excuse. No, but it's an explanation. I looked him in the eyes. Son, Adriana didn't just trick you. She tricked all of us. She was very good at what she did. Too good. And you? You just wanted to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. Tears rolled down his cheeks. How can you forgive me? Because you are my son. And because I know your father would have forgiven you too. He loved you. And wherever he is, I know he just wants to see you happy. Michael broke down. He cried like he hadn't in years. And I hugged him like when he was a child, like when he fell down and came running to seek comfort in my arms. Because that never changes. A son will always be your son, no matter how much time passes, no matter how many mistakes he makes. A mother's love is unconditional. That same month, I made a decision. I sold 2 of the properties Adriana had tried to steal. With that money, I created a trust fund for my grandson, Michael's son, who was only 6 years old, an innocent boy who had lost his grandfather and would now grow up without a mother. I wanted to make sure he was protected, that he had a future, that Adriana's lies wouldn't ruin his life too. I donated the rest of the money. Part went to St. Jude Hospital on the condition that they improve their security protocols for vulnerable patients. Another part went to a homeless shelter because Skinny had saved my life. And if he, someone invisible to society, could be my guardian angel, then there were thousands like him who deserved a chance. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because Julian would have done the same, and because I finally understood something that had taken me a lifetime to learn. True wealth is not in what you own. It is in what you do with what you have. It is in how you treat people who cannot give you anything in return. It is in sleeping peacefully, knowing that you did the right thing even when no one was watching you. One afternoon while organizing Julian's study, I found a letter. It was hidden inside one of his favorite books. A letter he never sent, dated 2 weeks before he died. It said, Elena, If you are reading this, it is because something happened to me. I need you to know that I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong person. I let someone get too involved in my life, in our finances, in our family, and now I'm scared. Scared of what might happen. If something happens to me, please don't trust anyone. Investigate. Fight. Because I know you are stronger than you think. You always have been. I love you and I'm sorry. The letter fell from my hands. Julian knew, on some level, he knew Adriana was dangerous, and he had tried to warn me, but he didn't make it in time. I sat in his chair surrounded by his books, by his scent that still permeated the leather of the desk, and I cried, not out of sadness, but out of closure, because I could finally tell him, it's done, my love. I did what I had to do. I defended you. I defended us. Now you can rest. And I felt for the first time since his death that he was truly resting. That justice, although late, although incomplete, had arrived, and that I, a 68-year-old woman who had been underestimated, betrayed, almost murdered, had won, not with anger, not with revenge, but with dignity. And that I discovered was the most powerful victory of all. 6 months after the trial, one morning in December, I woke up with a need I couldn't ignore. I had to see him, Skinny, the man who unknowingly had changed the course of everything. The man who, with a single desperate scream, had saved my life and unleashed justice. I hadn't seen him in a long time. After the trial, I'd gotten him a job at a small cleaning company. I had paid for a modest room in a neighborhood. I had given him money for clothes, food, medicine, but I had never thanked him. Not really, not the way he deserved. I looked for him for 2 days. He wasn't at his job. He wasn't in his room. No one had seen him. And then one cold afternoon, I found him in the same place where everything began, the corner of my street, sitting against the wall, in the same worn clothes as always, despite everything I had given him. I approached slowly. He looked up and recognized me. Mrs. Elelanina. Skinny, I've been looking for you. He smiled sadly. I'm sorry. I just couldn't stay in the room. I couldn't keep the job. I don't fit in there. The street is my home. Always has been. I sat down next to him. I ignored the glances of the people passing by. I ignored the cold of the concrete. I ignored everything except him. I didn't come to scold you. I came to thank you. He shook his head. You don't have anything to thank me for. I have everything to thank you for. I took an envelope from my purse. Without you, I would be dead. Without your scream, without your bravery, Adriana would have gotten away with it. That's why I want to give you this. I handed him the envelope. He opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a check for $100,000. His eyes filled with tears. Mom, I can't accept this. Yes, you can and you will because you earned it. Do whatever you want with that money. Travel, rest, or donate it if you want. But take it because it's yours. Because you saved a life, and that is priceless. He clutched the check to his chest, sobbing in silence. It wasn't just my doing, he said through tears. It was your husband. He spoke to me that night. I froze. What? I dreamed of him clearly. I was sleeping on that corner, and suddenly I saw him standing in front of me in a gray suit, smiling. He told me, watch over my wife. She's in danger. Don't let her start the car. And when I woke up, you were there getting into the car, and I screamed. I don't know why. I just screamed. Tears rolled freely down my cheeks. Julian, I whispered. He loved you very much, Mom. You could feel it in the dream. Very much. I looked up at the sky. The gray winter clouds moved slowly. The air smelled of impending rain. Thank you, Julian, I said softly. Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for sending me an angel when I needed it most. Skinny wiped his tears with the dirty sleeve of his jacket. Mom, do you believe in those things? In dreams that the dead watch over us? I looked him in the eyes. I didn't before. I thought everything was chance, coincidences. But now I know there is something more, something we can't see, but that is there watching over us, guiding us. Julian sent you to me, and you saved me. That is not a coincidence. That is love. Love that transcends death. We sat there for a while longer in silence. Just two people connected by an impossible story, by a scream that changed everything. Finally, I got up. Take care, Skinny. And if you ever need anything at all, find me. I will always be here for you. Same here, Mom. Even though I don't have much to give, you already gave me everything. You gave me my life. I walked back to my house with a lighter heart than I had had in months. When I arrived, I sat on the porch, the same place where Julian and I used to have coffee on Sundays, where we planned trips we never took, where we dreamed of growing old together. And although he was no longer physically present, I felt his presence in the wind that moved the leaves of the bougainvillea tree, in the singing of the birds he loved so much. In the warmth of the sun that filtered through the clouds, I closed my eyes and spoke. "You can rest now, my love. Everything is all right. Michael is healing. Our grandson is protected. Adriana paid for what she did, and I am at peace. Thank you for watching over me. Thank you for not leaving me alone. Thank you for loving me so much that you found a way to save me even from where you are. I love you. I will always love you until we meet again." I opened my eyes, and just at that moment, a white butterfly landed on the edge of the table. It stayed there motionless, as if looking at me, and then it flew away high toward the sky. I smiled because I knew it was him saying goodbye, telling me that he could finally rest. And I, a 68-year-old woman who had lost her husband, who had been betrayed by her family, who had been seconds away from dying, I had survived, not just physically, but with my dignity intact, with my self-respect recovered, with my truth defended. And although the road had been painful, although the scars still hurt, I knew something with absolute certainty. It was worth it because the truth is always worth it. Because justice, although slow, always arrives. And because a woman who decides to defend what is hers, what is right, what is fair, that woman is unstoppable. And I had just discovered that I had always been that woman. I just needed everything to be taken away from me to realize it. This story touched my heart in a way I never imagined, because it reminded me that no matter how old you are, no matter how many times you have been underestimated, no matter how much pain you carry, you always have the power to rise up, to fight for your truth, to reclaim your dignity. And you, have you ever had to face a family betrayal? Did you ever have to defend yourself when no one believed you? Leave me your comment. Tell me your story. Tell me where you are watching me from, because every story matters, every voice counts, and together we form a community of people who don't give up. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it left you thinking, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to keep sharing real-life stories that remind you that you are never ever alone. Because true wealth is not in what you own, but in what you don't allow to be taken from you. And the most valuable thing you have is your dignity. Never ever sell it. See you in the next story.